Hey YouTube, it is League turnover today. It is Ultra League and Spring Cup. So Spring Cup, this Spring Cup is actually on for 2 weeks. It's on this week and it's on next week. And next week is Master League. So I assume that the majority of people will play Spring Cup next week. So I don't know if you're going to be playing Spring Cup this week, but if you are, I'm going to go over some rankings and some team ideas. But I think it'll probably be a mix of Ultra League, Spring Cup today, like this week, and then Spring Cup all next week. So it's a 1500 CP league, water, grass, and fairy. It's three typings, and I was going through trying to put teams together. Three typings with Mantine and Toxapex banned. And when you look at the rankings here, you kind of see what this meta is going to be like. So, fairy, water, and grass. So fairy has potential throughout, and Galarian Weezing is the biggest one, and Carbink at 19 there. I think those are generally, the safest in this meta. Yes, there's some poisons, Tentacruel at number 9, but outside of that, Carbink just being so tanky and just with neutral rock throws across the board, well, I mean, it's, unless you get like a Mud Boy, but for the most part, pretty safe there. And then Weezing just coverage with Brutal Swing and Overheat. I think they're probably going to be the safest ones when I was doing like team building. And then the waters, I think it's so funny because when I was doing team building, I look at this list and there's no Lantern, and Lantern was the answer to so many Pokemon. And it's because with a limited meta of three typings, you're just like countering each other, right? So water is going to be weak to grass. Grass, I think grass has an advantage because it's not like grass is weak to fairy. In fact, if you are a poison grass, you are going to do super effective against fairy also. But it's the secondary typings on these water Pokemon and these other Pokemon that really put them over the edge, right? So whenever you're in these very, very limited typings, when you have like 1, 2, 3, 4 typings, those with secondary typings are going to dominate. So let's just look at the water. Tentacruel is a water, but it's acting more as a poison jab, acid spray. With the Scald if you need it, but for the most part, you're probably just going to poison jab and acid spray everything. Empoleon, you have the Steel Wing fast move with the Drill Peck for super effective against grass. Steel, that's your Steel. Pelipper as a flyer, right? You're a water, but now you're hitting super effective against the grass, which is one of your weaknesses. So everything with the secondary typing, and that's what makes all these strong, and Dugong, same sort of thing, right? Water, but an ice, and an ice hits super effective against grass. So that's why all those Pokemon are on the list for waters, because you have that secondary typing that really helps you out in the meta. And it's the same for grass, right? You have Ferrothorn, half steel, which helps you out in most situations, like it's like fairies and stuff like that. And then the steel helps you out against other grass Pokemon. You're going to resist a lot of the grass and ice moves. Well, not resist the ice move, you'll take neutral from ice. Abomasnow, with that ice secondary typing, being able to hit super effective against other, getting that duo there, hitting super effective ice against grass, and then hitting super effective against the water with the energy balls. Tropius with the flyer, right? You're half flying, so you're hitting super effective against the grass. So it's really going to come down to like which Pokemon have secondary typings, and then you can just go down the list. Venusaur with poison, Jumpluff, half flying, Golisopod with the bug. So there's a lot of sort of duo typing Pokemons that make them strong. But again, it's a limited meta. There's like 20 viable Pokemon. And let's look at some of them in action. So team number 1, I always start with the first top ranked Pokemon just to look at its matchups. And again, down the board, it's pretty safe, right? Tentacruel, no, because you're half poison too. Galarian Weezing is half fairy, half poison, so you actually neutralize the poison on Tentacruel. So that's what makes Weezing pretty safe. You're half poison, which ends up resisting grass and neutralizes the poison on Tentacruel. So I think that's why Weezing's ranked 1. It's pretty safe. It's fast charging. It's got the overheat for the grass. You can spam Brutal Swings for the water Pokemon. It's pretty good. Where's your weakness? Pelipper, Tentacruel. You're still sort of weak to those water Pokemon because your main move is overheat, so you have to use a non-stab Brutal Swing. So cover it with Lantern, and again, Lantern is not in the top 20. I feel like Lantern not being in the top 20 is because there's so many it's a 3 typing thing and grass is 1 that could be everywhere. But Lantern is going to be very, very strong in this meta. It should handle pretty much all the waters and the fairies. So it's going to do quite well. And then even some of these grass, like it's going to get killed by a lot of the grass, but there are some like duo typings like Tropius and Jumpluff, which are half flying. So you can at least hit neutral there. So I think Lantern is probably underrated on the rankings. And then Ferrothorn is one of the top rated grass Pokemon because again, secondary typing of the steel, you will resist other grass Pokemon. You'll have basically coverage for the grass Pokemon and the water Pokemon. So it just should be a nice combo there. So this is essentially like 3 strong Pokemon together for team number 1. Team number 2, I started with Abomasnow because again, that duo typing Abomasnow, as you can see, look at all those X's down the board. Cover your grass and you cover your water. So it's gonna be super. I expect Abomasnow should be on the majority of teams. I would be very surprised if Abomasnow is not, given how strong it is just in general, and then in limited metas it should dominate, and this is one limited meta it should dominate. Okay, so where's your weakness if you're gonna run Abomasnow? Bow Wow as a fire down there, Tentacruel as the poison being the main one. So what does well against that? Empoleon, water steel Pokemon, so the steel resisting the poison jabs on Tentacruel. As you can see down the board, you got some losses there with Lantern and Poliwrath, which are just obvious if you've played it in Ultra League before, Great League this week. But for the most part, that steel typing neutralizes the grass. You have the Drill Peck. You're now hitting neutral against grass with the Steel Wing. And neutral against grass with Steel Wing? I think so. And then I paired it with Trevenant. And Trevenant's an interesting one because it again has that sort of secondary typing of Ghost, which should allow it to do pretty well against most grass, realistically, unless they get the secondary typing. Again, you are still weak to ice, which there are a few of those, but I think Trevenant should be pretty good. And yeah, I just confirmed while I was talking there that steel does neutral to grass. You think that someone who hit legend 16 times would know that by now, but apparently not. Team number 3, Pelipper, Roserade, and Carbink. So I started with Pelipper because I'm like, okay, top ranked Pokemon. Obviously Lantern will kill it, but outside of that, being able to hit super effective against what is supposedly your weakness in grass. Also just having like spamminess for the water Pokemon and resisting water Pokemon. So it should be pretty good just if you cover your Lantern weakness. So I covered that with Roserade. Roserade's an interesting one because it's a poison, but it also has access to Fire Weather Ball. So between having the grass and the access to Fire Weather Ball, I think it's going to be a pretty sneaky Pokemon too. It's very glassy though. And with 2 super glassy in the front Pokemon, I needed a bulky Pokemon in the back, and I saw Carbink. So I'm like, okay, let's just put Carbink in. And kind of what I thought, like Weezing and Carbink are generally going to be pretty safe in this meta. Again, the fairies, there's nothing that just like directly goes at fairies. There's a couple poisons, but even against Tentacruel, you're so bulky, and with the rock throws, you can just stay in a lot of, you'll lose, but like you can stay in pretty decently. So I think if you want to, again, you are weak to grass. That's a funny thing. If you look at the wins and losses here, so Ferrothorn's just going to wall you. So that you really got to cover your Ferrothorn weakness with Carbink. But if you look at all your other losses, wins, Carbink wins against a bunch of grass here, right? Even though you're taking super effective from grass because you're just bulky and the rock throws do add up. So I think Carbink, if you don't have one built up, it's kind of useless in open Great League right now with the state of the meta, but definitely has play here. So Tentacruel, again, I wanted to see Tentacruel because I think it's generally safe. A water Pokemon that will resist water, but do do neutral with the poison jabs, and then you can hit super effective with poison jabs against the grass and the fairies. So if I had to pick 2 Pokemon off the top of my head that I think are going to just dominate this meta, it is Tentacruel and it is Abomasnow. I think those two are going to be very, very strong in this meta. Trevenant, again, I put it in as a grass. It recommended just a bunch of other, again, basically this is saying cover, if you're going to use Tentacruel, cover your Lantern weakness and cover some of the other grass that will neutralize the poison, aka Venusaur and Trevenant. Trevenant neutralizes the poison because of the ghost, and Venusaur neutralizes the poison because of the poison. So you lose there, cover those weaknesses. Trevenant is your answer with Lantern, and then pick a third. This one was just, I was trying a different Pokemon. I was like, let's just try Celio. Celio's kind of an interesting one because it kind of plays the, like, if you don't have Celio, Dugong, same sort of situation, just water Pokemon, but that actually plays more as an ice Pokemon. And Celio actually just has like Body Slam, so it's just kind of neutral across the board. It's pretty spammy if you haven't used it before, and it's very bulky. And team number 5, I tried to go a little off, and it's Golisopod Quillfish Superior. As you could see, like, doesn't have it does okay. Like, Golisopod's pretty safe in terms of like a third Pokemon that's safe, just because you have the claws that it just spam so fast, and you can run X-Scissor on it, which is super effective against grass Pokemon, and then you have Liquidation. I think those are the probably recommended movesets, but so yeah, Golisopod should be pretty safe. Quillfish I put in. Quillfish is very spammy if you've never played with Quillfish. You're just always surprised how fast it can spam. So Quillfish is a pretty spammy Pokemon. Then again, we're going to be weak to Lantern, so let's put in an answer for Lantern, put in Superior, put in another grass, whatever you want. But that is basically it. So I do think there'll be some options. I do think that it's probably a limited meta. I would not be surprised if I had to pick like 7 or 8 Pokemon that I think you're going to see a lot of. It's going to be Weezing, Ferrothorn, Abomasnow, Lantern, which is not on this list, Carbink, Tentacruel, Trevenant. That's 7. And then a few others. Honestly, those are the 7 that I see. Maybe Dugong, because Dugong with the is bulky with the ice. Should be pretty good. So I'll put Dugong as my 8th Pokemon that I will use. But I think those 8 are realistically going to be the top meta here, just given their sort of coverage, secondary typings, and some of those with bulk there. But it mostly comes down to their moveset. Anyways, that is it. Ultra League, I'll be probably testing out Pokemon with those like new moves in the Ultra League just to see how they play. So I did that for Great League. I want to see how they do in an Ultra League, and that is basically it. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.